Welcome to today's Tanya class. Today is a very, very special day because we are, thank God, studying chapter 53, Perek Nun Gimel, which is the last chapter in the first section of Tanya, known as Likutei Amarim Tanya from the first Chabad Rabbi, the Alter Rebbe. We've been studying for many, many weeks, and today is really, really a tremendous celebration that we are finishing the first section of Tanya. It's another major opportunity that it's starting to by divine providence. I'm here in New York at the Ohel of the Rabbi, and we're able to do the siyum. In Hebrew, it's called a siyum, where you complete a section, a book of studying, and to do it in a holy place. By divine providence, this week I'm happen to be in New York for my daughter's wedding, so we're actually doing the siyum. It's a tremendous emotional moment, both that we're finishing the Tanya, both where we're finishing it, and also together with the wedding energy, that we're sitting here and studying Tanya. So we're going to go right into the chapter of Tanya, chapter 53, the last chapter in the first section of Tanya. And in this chapter, as I say every single week, every chapter is very, very special. And this chapter happens to be extremely special because the Alter Rebbe over here shows us how we have an opportunity to connect to the greatest infinite light possible. Us as human beings, we are finite human beings, and we're limited on many, many levels. We're finite people, but we have an opportunity to connect to the infinite light of God, and by knowing that we connect and knowing how it works, A, you know what to do, and B, when you do it, you're experiencing something totally different. So the Alter explains as follows, that we know that there is something which is called Sfirot, which we discussed in the classes. The Sfirot start from the first Sfirah being Chochma, intellect, and we know in the Sfirot there's three intellectual Sfirot, namely Chochma, Bina, and Das. And you have the seven emotional Sfirot, starting with Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, Yisod, and Malchut. So that's the package of the 10 Sfirot. The 10 Sfirot, Sfirah comes from the powerful godly energy, and the powerful godly energies exists on every single world. As we know, when God created the world, God was the infinite light, and in the infinite light, there was no room for the physical world. So you can't go from infinite to finite. I mean, you would have a major crash. So in order to go from the infinite light down to this physical, materialistic world where actually you walk around the world, unless you're going to a holy place, it doesn't look like God exists in the world. I mean, besides, Baruch Hashem was sitting at the Ohel of the Rabbi, we know it's a very spiritual place just by the energy we feel here and we see here. But generally speaking, this materialistic world is a physical place. But how did God create the transformation, going from the infinite light down to this physical world? So there's a process in the world of Kabbalah and mysticism to explain there's four worlds. World in Hebrew means olam. Olam has a translation, or we translate as world, but olam also comes from the word of helim, concealment. That means there's four different levels of concealment. We'll go over the four worlds, the names, and we'll explain in short what they are. The first level of concealment, and again, this is the first step down from the infinite light of God. Oyer Ein Sof, the infinite light of God. And again, it's hard for us to comprehend. We're finite human beings. We barely know what a lot is. I can imagine knowing what infinite is. But the Oyer Ein Sof had a contraction, and the first contraction, concealment of life, is called Atzilut. What does Atzilut mean? Atzilut actually comes from the word of Eitzel, next to. It means it's right next to the infinite light of God. And in that world of Atzilut, you have all the 10 Sfirot, starting from Chabad, Chochma, Bina, Das, Chagas, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Nehim, Netzach, Yisod, and Malchut. So you have all the 10 Sfirot in the first step down world of Atzilut. The next world down, you have the world of Beriyah. So already now there's more of a contraction of light. And that is called the world of creation. And in the world of creation, you again have all the 10 Sfirot, starting with Chochma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, Yisod, Malchut. From creation, we still don't have this materialistic concealed world where God is concealed. So from there, it comes down to the next world, which is called the world of Yetzirah, the world of formation. And again, in there, you have all the 10 Sfirot. And then you have this physical, materialistic world, Olam Ha'asiyah, which we call the world of action, the world that we see physical things. God is like maybe on the guest list in some places. But in there, you have all the Sfirot. Now, from the Sfirot, that's what God uses in each world to create the world and to create the creatures that's in the world. So every single world, for example, the world of Atzilut, The Sefirot are used to create the world of Atzilut, plus the creations that exist in the world of Atzilut. There's souls on that level, there's angels on that level. Then in the world of Beriyah, God used the Sefirot of the world of Beriyah to create the world and the creations of the world of Beriyah. The same thing in the world of Yetzirah, God used the Sefirot of the world of Yetzirah to create the world of Yetzirah and the creations of the world of Yetzirah. Angels, souls, etc. And the world of Asiyah was created from what? From the Sefirot, the world, and everything that exists in this world. And that's the way the process, which is called in Hebrew, actually is called Seder Hishtalshalut. The way the flow of energy gets flowing down from the higher down to this materialistic lower world. And anytime there's a creation, depending on which world it's in, it's coming from the Sefirot of that world through the process of contraction, so the light was befitting the vessel, and this way you have the proper amount of energy and the proper amount of light, so there's a proper union and a healthy creation of the item that's created in that world. Comes along the Alter Rebbe and says, that's all fine and good, however there's one exception. And what is that one exception? That exception is, we know that in this world that we live in, Olam Hasira, so we know in this world, the world that we live in, there's a holy country called Israel. In Israel, there's a holy city called Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, there's a holy mountain, Mount Moriah, where the temple was built. In Mount Moriah is where the temple was. In the temple, so there's a place which is called the Holies. Next to the Holies is a place called the Holy of Holies. And Hebrew, it's called Kodesh Kadashim. So in this physical world, there exists a place. Today, obviously, the Kodesh Kadashim is not there, which we're going to talk about right now in this world. But before we talk about right now, present day, what we're living in. But originally, when God created the world, and God gave us the Torah, and He commanded us to build the tabernacle initially, and eventually we built the temple. So He built the temple in Jerusalem, and there we built something which is called the Kodesh Kadashim, the Holy of Holies. What was in this place called the Holy of Holies? So in the place of the Holy of Holies was the Luchot, which is the 10 tablets, and the Torah. What was carved on the 10 tablets? The Aseret HaDibrot. So think about this. In the Holy of Holies, Kodesh HaKodeshim, you have in the Kodesh HaKodeshim, the Holy of Holies, you have the 10 tablets, the 2 tablets which have the Aseret HaDibrot on the tablets, and that is wow. I mean, now you're talking about the holiest energy that exists in this world, and we all know that in the tablets that God gave to Moses, that He brought down on Mount Sinai, which was housed in the Holy of Holies. So it says there was a lot of miracles that took place with the tablets. One of the miracles that took place with the tablets was that it says that the Mem and the Samach were standing there with a miracle. Why? Because if you see in a Hebrew letter, how does a Mem and a Samach look? It's a circle. So you have the outside circle. But if this was carved out in cement, or stone, so how is that little dot hanging in there without falling? There was no wire, there was no cable, but it was a miracle that it stood almost in thin air. How did that happen? Miraculously. Again, you're dealing with why? Because you're dealing with the Holy of Holies, you're dealing with the tablets, which is coming from God. So there's a miracle there. We know that also the Aron, the Ark, didn't take up any place in Holy of Holies. So we're dealing with obviously something very, very miraculous. That's in terms of the physical structure. But not only the physical structure, more importantly, the actual 10 commandments were powerful commandments because in there encapsulated the whole Torah. So the light of the commandments are very powerful. Where does this tremendous power come from that the Torah is so powerful, the Kodesh Kodashim is so powerful and so holy that there was miracles there and the powerful 10 commandments were sitting in the Holy of Holies? So the Alter Rebbe explains like this, that normally, if you go through the regular flow of Seder Hishtalshalut that we spoke before, like every single world through the worlds and through the Sefirot, you're going to end up with this materialistic world. And what are you going to see? A physical world, a world that's concealed of God and godliness. And what you see is you see materialism. You see hatred, you see animosity, you see jealousy, you see envy, you see people gossiping. That's in this physical world. But if you're able to elevate yourself a little out of the physical world, if you're able to connect to spirituality, you'll see that everything really comes from God. Everything is one, and we all should get along, and everyone should love each other. And there's no reason to have any envy or jealousy, and you realize everything comes from God. But how does one go about doing that? And how do you see that from a whole different perspective? How does that really happen if we're living in this materialistic world? So the Alter explains as follows: that what is the Ten Commandments? If you think about it, what is the Ten Commandments? The Ten Commandments is what? It's the will and wisdom of God. In other words, it is just like in this world. What is the Kodesh Kadashim, the Holy of Holies, the place that the wisdom of God is sitting? That's in the materialistic world. But let's take a journey up. We're going to take a journey up. The world of Yetzirah, the world of Beriyah, the world of Yetzirah, the world of Beriyah, up to the world of Atzilut. And it's hard to go up to the world of Atzilut, but let's imagine we're going up to the world of Atzilut. In the world of Atzilut, which is the first step down from the infinite light of God, so in the world of Atzilut, we said, what's the power that creates everything in the world of Atzilut, and from there actually creates the rest of the worlds? The highest level, the world of Atzilut, is what? Is Chochma Bina Das, the intellect, which is cool, just like in this materialistic world. Where's the Ten Commandments sitting in the Kodesh Kadashim, the Holy of Holies? So every single world has something which is called the Holy of Holies. What is the Holy of Holies of the world of Atzilut? The Holy of Holies of the world of Atzilut is the intellect of the world of Atzilut. Chochma Bina Das. What practically is the Holy of Holies of the world of Atzilut? What is the Chochma Bina Das of the world of Atzilut? That is the source where the Ten Commandments come from, and the Torah. So the Aseret HaDibrot and the Torah, the source of that comes from where? From Chochma Bina Das of the world of Atzilut. Now, normally, if it was the regular flow of Seder Hishtalshalut, it would have to go through the whole process of going through every one of the Sirot in the world of Atzilut, through Malchut of Atzilut, then start the process going through the journey through the world of Beriyah, through the journey through the world of Yetzirah, through the world of Asiyah, and then it comes down here. So the Alter says if that happened, we wouldn't have the Torah that we have it. The Torah wouldn't be so electrifying. It wouldn't be so powerful. It wouldn't be so godly. It would be just the material, it would be just from reading any other book. But the way it actually worked, and the reason why the Torah is so powerful, and you can try it yourself, every time you study the Torah, you can study it 1 time, 10 times, 100 times, thousands of times, you're always going to find something new in there. Because the Torah is a godly energy. But if it's a godly energy, this world is also a godly energy. Everything is everything was created by God. But the Alter explains that it's true everything was created by God, but the difference is that in the process of Ishtalshalut, the way the Torah came down to this materialistic world, it started out in the world of Atzilut, in Kodesh Kadashim, in Chochma of Atzilut. From there, it went through, everybody has to go through the process of going through Malchus of that world, because Malchus, by definition, what's Malchus? As it says in the Tikkun Zohar, we say it Friday night and before Kabbalat Shabbat, Malchus is called Peh. What does Peh mean? The mouth. What's a mouthpiece? A mouthpiece is the one that delivers, information, data. So, but there's a difference if it goes into Malchut and Malchus takes over and it waters down the intellect, like in the normal process. So in the normal process, when you go through all the Sfirot, when you come into Malchut, everything gets watered down to the level of Malchut. Malchus has the power to dilute it, so it's ready to produce a toned-down version to the next world. Here the Alter says it goes through Malchus, it has to go through Malchus, but only in a passing-by way where Malchus does not affect to tone it down. So normally every revelation from every world comes through Malchut. Here the revelation didn't come, even though it technically went through Malchut, but it's only passing through Malchut. It's like taking, for example, let's say you're in America and you're taking a flight to Israel. So you can take a flight to Israel and stop, let's say, in Europe and spend a week there, and now you're totally infiltrated in the culture of Europe. Or you can fly from America to Israel, but you're flying through Europe. You never even stopped in Europe. You flew through it. Europe won't have any effect on you because you never went through it. That's the same way the Torah goes through the world of Malchut. It just passes right through it. So it passes through the world of Malchut, of the world of Atzilut. It passes through Malchut of the world of Beriyah. It doesn't even go into the Kodesh Kodashim, the intellect of the world of Beriyah, because then it would tone it down a little bit. And straight from the world of Beriyah, it goes straight into the Kodesh Kodashim and the Holy Holies of this materialistic world. So again, the flow of energy, the way the Ten Commandments and the Torah goes from the infinite Ein Sof, it goes into the Holy of Holies of Atzilut, which is the Chochma of Atzilut. It goes through, passes through the world of Beriyah. It passes through the world of Yetzirah, and it goes straight into the Holy Holies of the world of Asiyah. So now we're dealing with pretty powerful energy that was not watered down or toned down by a process that it's going through different levels in the worlds. So in other words, so what you're dealing with, the author says two things, two important points, and it's going to be important to remember both points. Point number one, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with a revelation of God, which is coming from where? From the infinite light of God. And the first place where it actually it manifests itself is in Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies, of the world of Atzilut, which is the Chochma of Atzilut. Chochma of Atzilut. So the light that eventually ends up into the Holy of Holies, into the Ten Commandments, into the Torah, the light, the powerful energy is coming straight from Chochma of Atzilut. That's the source. Number two is that it only passes through, in the process of the journey, it goes through Malchut of Atzilut. It does not go through the intellect and Kodesh Kodashim of Beriyah. It goes through Malchut of Beriyah and straight into the Holy of Holies. So the Alter says, if you, in the times of the first temple, this is in the times of the first temple, when we had the Holy of Holies, and we had the tablets there, and we had the Torah there. So in the times of the first temple, when a person was able to connect to that infinite light that existed in the times of the first temple, you were connecting to what? To the powerful light that went through a very, very short journey down to this world, and therefore you're able to connect to the most powerful thing that existed in the world. What happened in the second temple? In the second temple already, we didn't have the Aron, we didn't have the Ark, we didn't have the Luchot. So, on one hand, it says in Talmud, the Shekhinah wasn't there. What does it mean the Shekhinah wasn't there? The Shekhinah was there. It said it's the Holy of Holies that exist. It means it didn't exist the same level as the first temple, but it did exist. What does that mean it did exist? So, in the second temple, the author explains that the light is coming from the same place. In other words, the basic difference, the way the whole world and all the worlds receive their light, they receive it from a process that Malchut of Atzilut, which is the last sphere of Atzilut, that's the one that distributes the light. As Malchus, we know, is Shechina. Malchus is G-Dly. Everything comes through Malchut. But the Torah, even in the second temple, the source didn't come from Malchut, it actually came from Chochma. It came from intellect. So it came from intellect, that's the source. In the first temple, we said it went through Malchus of Beriyah, and Malchus of Atzilut, and Malchus of Beriyah. In the second temple, the light, we said, is the same infinite light, but the process not only did it go through Malchus of Atzilut, like in the first, and Malchus of Beriyah in the second, but it also went through the process of Malchus of Yetzirah. So it went through three worlds, Malchus of Atzilut, Beriyah, and Yetzirah. From there it went straight into the Kodesh Kodashim. So in other words, in the world at that time in the second temple, all the world got its energy from where? From A, it got it from Malchut of Atzilut, not from Chochma of Atzilut. And B, it also went through the process of the whole world of Beriyah, the whole world of Yetzirah, and the whole world of Asiyah, and then a spiritual world of Asiyah, and then it went into the world through Malchut of Asiyah. In the second temple, how did it process? It processed through just Malchut of Atzilut, Malchut of Beriyah, Malchut of Yetzirah, and from there it went to the Holy of Holies. That took place in the second temple. The fact is today we don't have the first temple. We don't have the second temple. So the Alter says today, unfortunately, we don't have the two temples, so we don't have that type of transformation or that connection. But we have today, as the Torah tells us, that we have Ein Lo LaKadosh Baruch Hu Elo Daled Amot Shel Halacha. When somebody today studies Torah and studies, most importantly, the Halacha, Jewish law, Knows what the way God tells us how He wants us to lead our life. What does halacha mean? Telling us how we should lead our life. When a person studies halacha today, you are connecting to God on the most powerful way. What does that mean in the most powerful way? You're connecting to God's intellect of Atzilut. And again, our revelation is not coming from Malchut, which is the lowest level of revelation, which is the standard revelation, but it's actually coming from the world of Chochma. So when you ask a simple question, what does God want me to do right now? No, it's from the morning. You get up in the morning. What does God want me to do? He wants me to wash Negelvasa. He wants me to say the Moda'ani. He wants me to pray. He wants me to study. He wants me to have Ahavas Yisrael. He wants me to love people unconditionally. He wants me to give charity. He wants me to help someone. He wants me to respect my parents. Whatever God wants, whenever you do halacha, you are connecting to what? The infinite light of God, which is the Kodesh Kodashim of Atzilut, Malchut of Chochma of Atzilut. From there, that's the type of light and the level of transformation that it goes down. So in the first temple, we said it goes through Malchut of Atzilut, Malchut of Beriyah, and that's it. It goes straight into the Kodesh Kodashim. Pretty powerful. It wasn't toned down that much. In the second temple, it was already toned down more because it went through Malchut of Atzilut, and it went through Malchut of Beriyah, and it also went through Malchut of Yetzirah. What happens today in Halacha? So the Rabbi explains, Rabbi explains, that it goes through the world of Malchut of Atzilut, Malchut of Beriyah, Malchut of Yetzirah, and also Malchut of Asiyah, and from there, Malchut of Asiyah, the spiritual one, and from there it goes into the Kodesh Kodashim. So two things. Point number one is that the light that we're dealing with, that's in Halacha, is what type of light? The infinite light of God, and as the source is Chochma, not Malchut. So in either case, whether it's the first temple, the second temple, even today when we study Halacha and we observe Halacha, we are connecting to what? The infinite light of God, which is coming from the Kodesh Kodashim of Atzilut, the Chochma of Atzilut, versus Malchut of Atzilut, which everyone gets from Malchut of Atzilut. In the difference between the first temple, the second temple, and today, in terms of the transformation of light, where it gets toned down. So in the world of, in the first temple, it went through Malchut of Atzilut, Malchut of Beriyah. In the second temple, it went through Malchut of Atzilut, Beriyah, and Yetzirah. And in this world, it goes through Malchut, Atzilut, Beriyah, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. So Rabbi asks, the Alter Rebbe asks a simple question: if it's going through even Malchut of Asiyah, so what's the difference than everything else in this world? Everything else in the world comes through Malchut of Asiyah. So the Alter Rebbe explains very simple, that we know that in light, there's the source of the light. In other words, let's use, for example, a human being. In a human being, whether it's your head or your feet or your hands or your heart or your brain, any part of your body, it's all connected to the infinite part of God. So from there is no difference. Then you have let's go to the third level, where you have your hands that only do your hand function, you have your feet, does your feet function, you have your eyes, and so on and so forth. But then you have a place where everything is getting the source of energy from. And the source of energy is sitting in the brain. So in other words, so even though everything in this world gets its source from God, and it goes through Malchut of Atzilut, the difference is that in the Torah, and in the Kodesh Kodashim, when a person is connecting the Torah, you're not dealing with a specific ray of light, but you're actually dealing with the source of light. So in the source of light, that exists in Halacha. Now, so what happens when a person, let's say, sits, and as the Talmud tells, even one person, when you sit down and you're studying Torah, at that point, you are connecting to the infinite light, Kodesh Kodashim of Atzilut, Chochma of Atzilut, and you're not only connecting them, but you're actually connecting to it on the most powerful way, which is on the intellectual level. Now, how does that work practically? So the Alter Rebbe explains like this, that what happens is, when a person studies Torah, you're connecting to the infinite light. So then the Alter Rebbe asks, so if that's the case, why do we say God only has a place in Halacha, Jewish law? What's wrong when a person sits and studies Torah? When you're studying Torah, think about it. You're connecting to the infinite light. Or, for example, when you do a mitzvah, you're doing the infinite light. And the author explains an interesting there, and he says like this. Yes, it's true. Anytime you study Torah, you're connecting to the infinite light. Absolutely. And when you're doing a mitzvah, you're connecting to the infinite will of God. But he said there's something unique about halacha, and that's as follows. Because we know that intellect is Chochma bina das. And that's Torah. When you study Torah, you're studying what God wants. Then you have something which is above intellect, like the crown on top of the head. There's still, even though you have the head is the biggest thing in the body, you still have the crown on top of the head. What is the crown? The crown in Hebrew is called is the keser. Keser actually is the level of ratzon, the will of God. So mitzvot, that's the will of God. So mitzvot is the will of God, and intellect, that's the understanding of God, that's the learning of God. But what's unique about halacha is that halacha has a fusion. It's the fusion of both. Why? Because on one hand it's learning, you have to know what God wants, but halacha has the practical application. Okay, so we're doing this. So halacha is unique when a person follows Jewish law. You're learning what to do, and then you're doing it. So in halacha, it's the study and the learning come together. As the author quotes from the Zohar says, and the Zohar says a word, it's usually pretty powerful. It says, Abba Yesod Barta. What does that mean? So we know that God's name is made up of 4 letters. Yud, and the Hey, and the Vav, and the Hey. There's a lot of powerful insights into it because it's the infinite name of God. But one of the ideas of the 4 letters of God's name is Yud refers to Chachma, Hey refers to Bina, this Vav refers to the Midot, and the Hey refers to what? Malchut. And in order to have God's name complete, you need all 4. You need the Chochma, you need the Bina, you need the emotions, the Midot, and you need Malchut. And it's about connecting the 2 together. In other words, what does God want? But Malchut is what? When a person actually does it, when a person does what God wants. And that creates that makes God's name complete. So from here, the ultimate brings back in what we discussed for several times in chapter 35, and last week and 2 weeks ago, about the famous piece of Zohar from Parshas Balak, where he quotes from the Yenuka, that the Yenuka says like this, that you have the candle, if you have a candle on your head, so you want to make sure that you feed it with oil. Because if you have, the goal is we want to have light in our life. We want to have a light life. We want to have brightness in our life. So we light a fire. Now what happens if you light a fire and you don't add oil to it? Fire is not going to last that long. So you want to be able to light the fire, but you want to make sure the fire stays lit. How does the fire stay lit? The fire stays lit, so the Zohar says what? By doing mitzvot. So, and what is doing mitzvot? Referring to shemen. So the author asks a simple question. We know shemen is chachma, is intellect. So if shemen is intellect, why are they saying to do mitzvot? And if it's mitzvot, then why does he use the word shemen? And if it's shemen, then it should be studying the Torah. Why is it mitzvot? So the author says, based on the what we explained up until now, that ultimately, what is the source of Torah and mitzvot? The source, in its original source, is where? Comes from the Chochma, Kodesh Kodashim of the world of Atzilut. So in other words, even though when we observe the 613 commandments, the 248 positive and the 364 negative, and their mitzvot, which they're commandments of God, and they're Ratzon Hashem, but ultimately, where do we know, what's the source of it from? The source is from where? The source is from Torah, which is Chachma. So that's why the Zohar uses the expression, the Yenuka says that you make sure you have Shemen. Why? Because Shemen is referring to the source of the mitzvot. So the source of the mitzvot is Shemen, which is Chachma, which that's in the Kodesh Kodashim of Atzilut. So if that's the case, the Torah says, if we're saying the most important thing is what? Is Torah study. Because Torah study is Shemen, is Chachma, and that's the source where it comes from. So why even do mitzvot? Sit and study Torah. You're connecting with the Ein Sof, the infinite light, which is the Chochma of Atzilut, through Chochma of Atzilut. And why do you have to do mitzvot? So the Torah says no, because at the end of the day is, even though you need to have, it says shemen, but how do you burn the oil? You need a wick. And now that you need a wick, the wick has to burn. The wick has to be consumed. Why is that? And the author explains there's 2 types of transformation that takes place when a person does a mitzvah. And he explains like this. There's the avoda, the work of a Tzadik, and there's the avoda of the beinoni. What's the work of a Tzadik? So we know that when a person studies Torah, so you're studying. studying Torah, you understand what God says, you know which mitzvot they are, what's the reasons for the mitzvot, and so on and so forth. It's all about the mitzvot and the study, the comprehension. However, God also gave us, not only to give us the Torah to study, but God also gave us what? Our real life, our midot, our emotions. And our job is not only to understand what to do, but our job is to feel what to do and to be inspired and to transform ourselves, as we know, to have love for God, to be in awe of God, and to transform every one of our midot, that they should be dedicated to God and godliness. Now, to transform a midah, the Alter Rebbe says, that is looks like when you take the wick and you're burning it. It means you're transforming the wick into fire. When you transform a midah, instead of being angry, God forbid, or instead of being jealous, or instead of being vengeful, but on the contrary, you tone it down. Not only you tone it down, but you're actually nice and you're kind and you're loving unconditionally. That is actually just like taking a physical wick and you're burning it and you're transforming it into light. Every time you're able to tone down a negative midah, anytime you're able to, cool down and not explode and not be reactive, you're actually transforming a midah. But the Alter Rebbe says that's the avodah of a Tzadik. Because Tzadikim have the power through prayer and Torah study and through the light of the Shekhinah, they have the power to, guess what, to transform the midot. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's an avodah for a Tzadik. And listen, let's hope we can know about Amich Chul and Tzadikim. We should try to be Tzadikim. But the Alter Rebbe says, what's the avodah of a beinoni? And if you know, we studied in Tanya that, if we were on the level of the beinoni, that would be great. So the avodah of the beinoni is, again, if we can transform midot, wonderful. But the avodah of beinoni is not to transform the midot. As a matter of fact, when you try to transform it, you might be frustrated because it's not going to work. And you say, look, I have all these gross emotions and I'm anyways upset and angry. So what's the point? And I want to share my emotions. I want to be honest about my emotions. But the reality is, no, don't try to elevate something you don't have the power to do. A person has to be honest what their avodah is. A person has to know what their avodah is and do your avodah. Your job is to do your avodah. What is the avodah of a beinoni? The Alter Rebbe says very simple. Your job is control three things. Three things you have to control. What do you have to control? The garments. What are the spiritual garments? Machshava, dibur, and maisa. Thought, speech, and action. If you're able to control and direct your machshava, your thoughts, your speech, and your action, that is your job. Not if you're able to. That's a job of a beinoni. In other words, what does that mean practically? Let's say, for example, you have these terrible and inappropriate feelings. So the Alter Rebbe says, relax. You're not changing it. You're human, and tzaddikim have the ability to transform it. The only thing we're requesting of you and asking of you, and maybe even begging and pleading sometimes, don't think about it. Don't think about it. Again, I know it comes into your mind, and that you have no control over, but don't obsess over it. Because the first thought is okay, but push delete right away. And not only push delete, but try to think about something positive. If someone tells you something and you start thinking, oh my gosh, start worrying, and you start getting nervous. Stop it right away and stop being hopeful. Stop being positive. Our job is to transform machshavot. Instead of having machshavot zorot, strange and inappropriate thoughts, have positive and happy thoughts. And the Alter Rebbe says that beinoni, it's not a problem. Anybody at any moment can switch. Because the facts are the facts. You can't change facts. But you can change your attitude. Changing your machshava is easy. And every time you change your machshava, your thought, you are doing your avodah, and then you're actually taking a psila, which is a wick, a thick, coarse wick, and you're turning it into light, something beautiful. Every time you're able to either stop the negative thought, and more importantly, start thinking positive at that moment, you're putting a light on. And there's no greater light you can put on is to lighten up your life with positive and healthy thoughts. That's in terms of machshava, your thought. Dibur, sometimes we get something, someone says something to us, or for whatever reason we want to say something not nice or nasty. So first thing is don't say anything. And that's sometimes a big thing. Just not to say anything is a big thing. How much more so if you not only can not say anything, you can actually say something positive. Wow. That is what? That is just like taking the wick and which there's nothing to it, it's a dull work. But when you take the wick and you light a fire to it, and the wick turns into fire, you created something beautiful. The same thing also when you resist saying something, or on the contrary, you say something positive, oh my gosh, you're putting on a beautiful wick, putting on a beautiful light. And the same thing also when it comes to actions, not doing something bad. Or on the contrary, doing something good when you want to do something, when you were ready not to do something good, that is transformation. So our avoda, the avoda of tzaddikim is to transform the emotions. If you can do that, it's wonderful. But if not, the Alter says at least be a beinoni. Transform your thoughts, transform your speech, transform your action. When a person transforms their thought, speech, and action, or if you're a tzaddik, you actually transform your midot. See, even though it looks like you're just transforming your animal soul, the Alter says no. On the contrary, by you transforming your animal soul, and by practicing machshava dibur ma'isa, and you're bringing light into your animal soul, you're actually bringing light into your godly soul as well. And when you bring godly soul into light into godly soul as well, you're actually creating, as the Alter says, the famous line, it says, Hashem Elokecha, God, your God is an eish eichlo. He consumes with fire. What does that mean? Our job in life is to create fire. What's fire? You're taking a wick and you're making it into a fire, and there's something bright. Our job is to create, taking a thought, taking a speech, an action, and for those that can do the emotions as well, and to transforming it into what? Into the greatest godly experience. So you see clearly from this chapter in Tanya how the best way to connect to God on the most deepest level is by studying Torah, by doing mitzvot, by studying Halacha, observing Halacha, Jewish law. You will be able to connect to the most powerful, infinite light that exists in this world, which is the Kodesh Kadoshim, the Chochma of Atzilut, that comes down to this world not in the ordinary manner, and you're able to connect not into a specific light that gives light to a piece of wood or to a piece of chair or to whatever exists in the material world, but you're actually able to connect to the source of light. So if we have the power to connect to the infinite light, Chochma, Kodesh Kadoshim of Atzilut, and we have the power to connect to the source, why do we have to settle for something second best if we can go for the best? So I want to really thank God that we had the opportunity to finish off 53 chapters of Tanya. And Baruch Hashem, there's been thousands of people that have watched it on the internet, and we should be able to have the opportunity to always connect to the infinite light of God by studying Torah, by doing mitzvot, by teaching others, and to practicing true unconditional love for one another, and to studying Halacha, observing Halacha, and this way we'll have the opportunity to connect to the greatest light. It's really an awesome honor and pleasure to be able to teach the Tanya, and especially to have the opportunity to finish the last chapter of Tanya here at the Oil of the Rebbe, the place where the light is very, very strong. And I hope that we can all merit to the greatest light when the ultimate light will be revealed with the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days.